Here we are again, number 3.
I'm telling you. Am I right? Give me a woo if you do that. Yeah. Yes. This can be shut off. This is the mind not able to quiet. It's opening so many windows. So you're thinking about a job you're working on, and your friend walks up, and you're thinking about a job, and you start talking to your friend. You see a logo. It reminds you of a vacation you want to take. Now you're thinking about a job, talking to your friend, looking at the logo, thinking about a vacation you want to take. Woo! And then your friend's like, yeah, my grandma passed away on Sunday. And you're like, that's a great idea. Because you're not tuned in, but not because you have an attention deficit, because you have an attention overload. If we could quiet the mind, then these conditions would go away. People that have OCD have disorganization in the mind. They crave organization in their outside environment. People get OCD, they walk into a room, there's a sock against the wall. They can't even work on the computer until they move the sock. Yeah, the ones that are laughing, those are the ones moving socks, right? Can't see you, but I know you're out there, right? So once we go through this genome, and if you have a break in that AHCY, that one in this green on the top, this is a propensity for addiction. How many of you know somebody who has ever been affected by addiction? Right. The thing about addiction is this: it has a tendency to shift and never really go away. Why is that? Because we don't treat the dopamine deficit. Remember, dopamine starts here, not here. And so we had a saying that the absence of dopamine is the presence of addiction. And the reason why addiction has a tendency to shift from drugs and alcohol to sex to working out to nicotine to what have you is because, to gambling, is because the dopamine deficiency is there. And you might cure the physical addiction, but you need to cure the dopamine deficit so that they can not have that signal to actually drive them to those behaviors. You show me a child that can play video games 12 hours a day, I will show you a future addict. A child is not playing the video game because he likes the video game. He's playing the video game because it makes him feel normal. This is where all addiction starts, is the search for normalcy. Very few addicts woke up one morning and said, I want to get really banged up. They said, I want to feel normal. And in the search for that dopamine ding, they developed an addiction. And no one's ever returned the dopamine to normal. So that addiction has surfed with them for the balance of their adult lifetime. And we can fix that by looking at those 5 genes. So, woo! Because so many of us are supplementing just for the sake of supplementing, right? I go into your cabinets and I see saw palmetto and St. John's wort and turmeric and curcumin and all of this stuff. And by the time you're done explaining to me why you're taking it all, you're as lost as I am, right? So we're asking the wrong source. We need to ask our bodies. If I could take a Q-tip and put it in your cheek and swab it 10 times, I send it into a lab. When that result comes back, you know exactly what you are deficient in. And then you put that raw material back into the human body and watch it thrive, right? Because we used to think that, dude, I really do love you guys. Like, I just want to run out. Can I run out there and just high five some of you guys? Woo! Yeah! Love you guys! Yeah! Woo! Yes! Yes! Love you guys! All right! Yeah, baby! Yeah! Woo! Yes! Woo! They told me not to do that. So, sorry whoever had the microphone. I just couldn't help myself. I love you guys. It's amazing. So, when we put raw material back into the human body, it is astounding how well it performs, right? Mental clarity. So aside from my big, bold promise of adding 10 years or 7 years to the life of everybody in this room, and this is a large room, so I'll only be able to do it once or twice, I promised you that I would take any ailment that someone that you or a loved one suffers from, and right here on this stage in front of 4,500 people, I'll tell you exactly what is missing in their body that needs to be replaced to fix that. Before we do, I'm going to tell you how we're going to get this test, and I promise you, this used to be the time in my speech where I felt friction, because I'm going to ask you to respond to an offer. I'm going to ask you to get this genetic test done. Because, and then we're going to go back and we're going to talk about the superhuman protocol. But if you do nothing else today, point your phone at that URL and get that test. You do it once in your lifetime. For $599, you and your family will never ever guess again what you need to do in order to solve this. And as I was running out there, that lady was screaming about thyroid. So I'm just going to mention the thyroid real quick. That top gene that I was just talking about has to do with something called hypothyroid. How many of you know someone in your family that's suffering from hypothyroidism? Or Hashimoto's? I call it Hashi nonsense. So just a quick little lesson from the stage, and they say you should never do science from the stage. I'm going to do some science from the stage. So here's how the thyroid works, right? The thyroid produces two hormones. Produces something called T4, produces another one called T3. When T3 is low, we call this hypothyroid. And then we medicate the thyroid, right? You want to talk about a pandemic? We have a pandemic of poisoning organs in the human body that have done nothing wrong, right? We have a pandemic poisoning human beings that have done nothing wrong. So, but here's a little known fact about the thyroid, right? It makes T4 and it makes T3, but it only makes 20% of the T3 in our blood. So wait a second, if it only makes 20% of the T3, that means there's an 80% chance that hypothyroid is not the thyroid. Yes, but in 100% of those cases, we medicate the thyroid. Right? The question is, where does the other 80% of the T3 hormone come from? It is methylated from T4. T4 is the crude oil, T3 is the gasoline. The human body turns T4 into T3. That's where 80% of it comes from. This happens outside of the thyroid. If you take the right supplements, vitamins, amino acids, minerals, nutrients, you will begin to methylate T4 into T3. It starts to rise and hypothyroid disappears. People say it to me all the time, Gary, oh my God, you fixed my thyroid. I go, I didn't fix anything. Your thyroid didn't have anything wrong with it. I didn't touch your thyroid. I fixed your methylation outside of the thyroid. This is true with hypertension. The number one form of high blood pressure in America is called idiopathic hypertension. I love this word, idiopathic, in medicine. Because if you have no idea, you can just toss that term out. Idiopathic. Well, why do I have high blood pressure? My EKG is normal, my EEG is normal, my cardiac cath is normal, my stress EKG is normal, my dye contrast study is normal, I have normal heart and lung sounds. Why do I have high blood pressure? It's idiopathic, right? We don't know. And so what happens when you have that fourth gene mutation is you can't lower the most inflammatory compound in the human body. It's called homocysteine. And as this amino acid rises in your blood, it irritates your blood vessels and they start to clamp down. If I make the pipes smaller in a closed system, the pressure goes up. I'll say that again. You have 63,000 miles of blood vessel in your body. If I start to marginally narrow that diameter, the pressure goes up, but there is nothing wrong with the heart. But yet what do? We stand on the heart for a crime that it's not committing. I want to put an end to that. Right? Woo! Another woo. Somebody gives me a woo over here like every time. They're not even out of woos. So, and as I embarked on this journey, something really very fascinating happened to me. And I really do encourage you to get this genetic test, but something fascinating happened to me in the study of the human genome and epigenetics. How many of you believe in the universal law of attraction? Okay. All right, I'm not going to get any woos on this. I might get like an unwoo, if there's such a thing. But for 22 years, I didn't believe in the universal law of attraction. I thought it was a bunch of spiritual mumbo jumbo. I was actually saved at a Promise Keepers convention. Yeah, 24 years ago. If it wasn't for his only son, none of this would be possible. But woo! I knew I'd get some woos on that one. But I stumbled upon a law in physics, and it's called constructive interference. If you ever get a chance, look up this law, constructive interference. What it says is that if two frequencies of equal wavelength meet, the size of the frequency doubles, which means that you can get energy from conversation. You can get energy from what I'm saying to you right now, right? I'm definitely getting energy from you guys. I mean, woo! So if equal frequencies meet and the size of the frequency doubles, so I started digging into that. I was like, well, that kind of makes it sound like it supports the universal law of attraction. What we put out, we receive. So I started digging down the spiritual rabbit hole of the law of attraction, and I started to stumble on some really valid clinical studies, and one of them is called the Spain Scale of Emotion, SPANE. What this study did was it took 25,000 human beings and put them in a room called a Faraday's cage. It's devoid of frequency. And they measured the frequency leaving a human being's body. And they were able to measure frequency with such accuracy that they could actually isolate specific emotional states. A practitioner 2 buildings away on a different floor could tell if that person was not just angry, but they were experiencing despair or jealousy or resentment, or if they were vengeful. They could tell the difference between passion, elation, joy, and arousal. That is how deeply they were able to isolate frequency. Does anyone know what the most powerful frequency to leave a human being's body is? 4 times more powerful than love, yes. It is the frequency of authenticity. Authenticity only happens when 2 things occur. Your words are truthful, and you believe what you're saying, right? That is part of the reason why you're receiving my message right now, because what I'm saying is true, and I deeply believe what I'm sharing with you. Right? So I say, if you know, all these people that have taken the stage today before me and the monster that's going to take the stage after me, don't admire them for their success or what they've done or what they've built or how much money they've made. Admire them for their authenticity, right? Because authenticity is the most powerful frequency to leave a human being's body. We say that women are more intuitive. How many of you have heard that? Okay, that's not true. Women are more sensitive to frequency. We call this intuition. Right? They are actually more sensitive to frequency. Have you ever had your spouse, if you're a guy, I'm just going to pick on the guys for a minute. You ever had your spouse tell you, something wrong with that dude? I'm telling you, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. Within 6 months, you're going to be taking that knife out of the back. Every time my fiance Sage has told me that without failure, it has happened. I'm like, he has such nice shoes. He's got a Louis Vuitton satchel. He's got it. Who can't have a Louis Vuitton?